What's up, mi gente? How's everyone doing? Happy Friday, and thank you for tuning into another episode of Cafecito y Cuba. So, what can I tell you this week? We saw a lot more of the same stuff. As more information starts to come out from the inside of the White House, Washington, about the imminent Cuba reversal policy, there's more groups trying to fight it. So not only American businesses and organizations, but also like the Engage Cuba Coalition, which I spoke about last week. All these groups keep coming out with more facts and more data on why this is bad for everybody, bad for business, bad for the people, and really bad for both sides of the equation. Donald Trump always talks about getting a good deal, and a reversal on Cuba policy, I think, is a deal in which both sides lose. And so let me tell you why. So something we saw this week adds a whole new dynamic to the spectrum of this reversal. And so basically 16 retired military officials wrote an open letter to Trump urging him to please not roll back Cuba policy because it would be really bad for national security. So in the interest of national security, to continue engagement and continue opening up with Cuba. Why? Well, the United States and Cuba have collaborated on a number of issues, including border control, narcotics trafficking, combating that, counterterrorism efforts, intelligence efforts overall. So not only is a policy of isolation bad for business and bad for the people, but now it's also bad for everyone because it's bad for national security. And that's a huge concern. It's very important. And so what a funny thing, something else actually, is that Donald Trump's own administration, the Cuba policy review was recently completed, I think last week or maybe the week before, and his own administration concluded that the best thing to do, the best policy would be to continue Obama's opening up with Cuba and continue engagement. So now, we really don't know what's going to happen. Trump may listen to his administration, but he may just go on and do what he wants. And so why would he do that? Why would he do what he wants? Well, he's actually not naive, not as naive to say that it would be good for the country or good for the people or anything like that. The latest that we've heard is that he's positioning his reversal on Cuba policy as taking a hard stance on human rights violations. Now, a policy of isolation will do nothing to stop human rights violations in Cuba. But even more than that, it doesn't take a genius to read between the lines and see that that's not the real reason, and that's not really what's going on here. Because Trump has, supported various leaders in the Middle East who have committed atrocities, human rights atrocities, and he really doesn't question their way of life or doesn't question their culture or say anything about that. He supports them over there. But when it comes to Cuba, it's something else, and that's really not what's going on. What it is a policy play and a politics move, and so he's just trying to gain support from hardliners in Washington, mainly congressmen from here in the state of Florida and Miami. That he's basically giving them what they want when it comes to Cuba, and they're a very select few. He's giving them what they want when it comes to Cuba in exchange for support on other things on his agenda that are more important or bigger that he wants to push through in Washington, like his American Health Care Act or, things like that. And so that's what's going on. And I want to touch on one last thing, which is probably the most common criticism or question that I get, which is, how do you really think that the policy of engagement on Cuba is going to help the Cuban people, the ordinary people on the island, or is it only going to serve the government? And my answer is, it's mainly going to help the Cuban people on the island. I shared an article yesterday that kind of explained how Cuban Airbnb owners, or owners of casas particulares, which are like Airbnbs but in Cuba, they make, aside from their regular jobs, compared to a Cuban who is not an Airbnb owner with a regular job, a Cuban Airbnb owner will make 800% more annual income than one who is not an Airbnb owner. 800% more annual income for anyone is unheard of. But that is how much of an impact the influx of travelers, especially from the United States after the opening in 2014, has on the people. And it's empowering them, and it's awesome, and I'd hate to see that go away or be reversed. So that would be my answer to that when someone asks, how is this helping the actual people in Cuba on the island, all you have to say is that the evidence is there, it's tangible, and it's measurable. So it shouldn't be, I think versus you think, or even something debatable. The fact is that it just does. And so that's all we got in the news today, guys. Thanks a lot for listening. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Hope you all have a great weekend. And Cafecito Cuba will be back next Friday. Always remember, pa arriba y pa adelante.
Ya viene llegando.